Hello, beautiful homemakers. As in the majority of these Fascinating Womanhood videos, the best part is towards the end, and the last part of this pamphlet is no exception. For now, we are in the middle of Chapter 15 of Pamphlet 7 of the original 1922 Fascinating Womanhood pamphlets. We've been talking about how to stay on your pedestal. The last few videos have been very important. Your next step. Your next step, after being sure that you are maintaining yourself on the pedestal, is to make the man agree that you belong there. This is done by your appreciating the right things about the man himself. You have already been told what some of these things are. The manly, the strong, the able, the qualities that contrast with your own feminine tenderness. In fact, you are already appreciating these qualities, or you would not have brought the man to this stage of the proceedings. What you do to sustain worship. There are certain qualities, however, your belief in which you must now emphasize. These are his courage, his sincerity, his right-mindedness, and finally and most of all, his nobility. First, you must believe that in the depths of his nature, he has these qualities. Then you must look for them and find them in what he says and does. This time, however, this is not done in order that you may offer him appreciative understanding, but in order that he will place you on a pedestal. If the man does not do and say things that are particularly admirable, the girl must subtly intimate to him that he is not estimating himself at his real worth, that he is capable of noble thoughts and deeds, even though he has hitherto not realized this capability. So many movies are built upon that premise, aren't they? Thus, she inspires the man with a desire to live up to such a conception of his character. She offers him a hope that perhaps he hasn't appreciated himself at his true value, that courage, truth, and nobility really are the underlying traits of his character. And of course, movies portray this because it's true. It's what we do in real life. We've probably just never thought about the need to do it. We've never broken it down like these pamphlets have done. This next sentence is in caps. Many a girl in this way has transformed a man from an apparently thoughtless, careless, selfish, and ignoble man into a true and noble one. Often, a man is at heart a humane and generous being, and only needs someone to suggest to him that his life does not do justice to his true character. Once persuaded that he is noble at heart, and that the girl perceives it, he becomes anxious to show both to himself and to the girl that there is no mistake about the matter. The turning point in many a man's life comes from just such a revelation of his higher capabilities. And this is so true. In fact, I just saw this play out on a video short. A man was as proud as a peacock in a new suit that his wife had bought him, and he had never owned a suit before. Blue-collar worker. He was so proud of this suit and how it made him look and feel. He said that it showed that his wife believed in him and could see his better side. He also said that he had never stepped foot in a church, but that he wanted to live up to his wife's expectations of him as leader, and that he wanted to better lead his family. He was going to start by taking them all to church. When the woman thus helps to reveal to him the right, the true, and the noble in himself, what better evidence is required that she is right, true, and noble herself? What is more natural than that he put the one who has made this wonderful revelation upon a pedestal? When men slip. The difficulty with all this is that the man does not always act as nobly as his real character would require. Men often slip and stumble, often are careless and forgetful, and at times low and cruel. Is the girl to close her eyes to this and still maintain that she sees manliness and nobility in him? No, for that would immediately stamp her as insincere. If a man does something that is inconsistent with your idealistic conception of his character, you must first show reluctance to believe it. Show that you had thought it impossible for a man such as he to do such a thing. If you are compelled to believe it, indicate that you know it is contrary to his true nature and was only the result of carelessness or thoughtlessness. And this next sentence is in capitals. You must be immensely disappointed at his temporary lapse, but your faith in the ultimate nobility of his nature must be unshaken. In fact, a man often attempts to wobble the girl's pedestal by seeing if she will hypocritically overlook some ignoble act on his part. He often pretends to be wicked or mean merely to see if she would be deceitful enough to close her eyes to his conduct, or so lacking in nobility as not to care. He will boast of how stern and relentless he is in business matters, how successful he has been in deceiving someone, how heartless he has been with a woman, etc., etc. In these circumstances, the girl must do as suggested above. Not accept everything he does as a sign of perfection, but show a reluctance to believe the tales, a doubt of a man of his character stooping to such meanness, and if compelled to believe it, a certainty that they are contrary to his true nature, and a disappointment that can only be relieved by the man's modification or otherwise satisfactory explanation. The disappointment need only be expressed by a word or a glance, but it must be unmistakable. 2 results of your plan. The effect of our continued attempt to discover the true and the noble in him will ultimately make the man believe that you truly belong on the pedestal on which you have placed yourself, that you are truly as dainty and noble and high-minded as your manner and conduct indicate. The first result is to increase his enjoyment of your appreciative understanding. Appreciation from any source is always relished. When it comes from someone whose good opinion does not count for much, however, whose judgment is not respected, it is only mildly gratifying. It may be taken as a matter of course, or even as a natural tribute of an inferior to a superior. But when the appreciation comes from someone who is fine and true and noble, who insists upon the highest ideal at all times and everywhere, then it is worth having. Appreciation of that kind is rare and hard to get. The second result of your conduct is to increase the man's good opinion of himself. If he has hitherto looked upon himself as a not particularly good man, he begins to wonder if he has been doing justice to himself, if he has not been covering up his innate nobility of character by his refusal to let it have free rein. And best of all, he tries to be, in fact, the noble man which the girl conceives him to be. This is a man's dream of an ideal woman, that her perfection, her being on a pedestal, will bring out the best and most noble part of him. Of course, if he is a Christian, his desire to serve Christ would also bring that out. But a flesh and blood woman in his life that he wants to please is a great encouragement to him to keep on the straight and narrow path, to do what's right at all costs. For he doesn't want to disappoint her. This is the kind of woman a man wants in a wife, the one who will bring out the best and most noble part of his character. We have talked about this throughout the pamphlets, and also when I read the book, Secrets of Fascinating Womanhood. I highly recommend that you listen to that book as well. How to Turn Worship into Love. Needless to say, when a girl inspires such feelings, the man is more than ready to worship her. Every time he comes in contact with her, he feels nobler and bigger and more of a man than he can possibly feel elsewhere. She, of all the millions on earth, is the only one who can peer into his heart and appreciate its true manliness, the only one whose sense of the fine and the good is so unwavering. No one else could possibly be as fine as she is, because no one else is so ready to recognize the fine in him. No one else could possibly be as pure and noble and true as she is, because no one else is so quick to perceive these qualities in him. And this next part is in capitals. She becomes for him the one woman in all the world, the purest, the best, the gentlest, and the loveliest in every other way. He not only believes she belongs on a pedestal, but insists upon bowing at the foot of it and worshiping her as the glorious personification of all that is lovely and lovable in woman. Wow, that seems a bit over the top, but it's a nice thought. When love comes. He has become, for the time being, a poet. He thinks and feels about her in the glowing terms of poetry. And the more he worships her, the more enjoyment he gets from her appreciation. The prouder he is that he can win it. This again intensifies the worship, and that his enjoyment and pride. His thoughts and emotions travel this circle faster and faster until his head and heart are fairly dizzy, until he exclaims with an Italian poet, "But on thee dwells mine every thought and sense, considering that from thee all virtues spread, as from a fountainhead, that in thy gift is wisdom's best avail, in honor without fail, with whom each sovereign good dwells separate, fulfilling the perfection of thy state. Lady, since I conceived that pleasurable aspect in my heart, my life has been a part in shining brightness and the place of truth, which till that time, good sooth, groped among shadows in a darkened place, where many hours and days it hardly ever had remembered good. But now my servitude is thine, and I am full of joy and rest, a man from a wild beast. Thou madest me, since for thy love I lived." These pamphlets are just breaking down what has happened since the beginning of time between men and women. The quality that inspires love. Is it not plain after perusing this poem that no man can love except where he first worships? It is not plain, too, that she must lift him from among shadows in a darkened place, where he never remembers the good that is in him, that she must point out to him the place of truth, where, in shining brightness, he truly belongs. And this next part is in caps. This is the highest duty of the sympathetic understanding which you have learned, and at the same time the greatest joy and happiness that a woman can experience. Its reward is worship, adoration, and love. In Chapter 3, we learn that a woman, to be completely bewitching, must be first an angelic being whom a man can worship from afar as infinitely better than himself, and second, a helplessly human little creature, full of pretty faults and preposterous fears, whom he craves to fondle in his strong arm, to shelter and to cherish there forever. In inspiring worship, you have fulfilled the first of these requirements. Meantime, however, the second must not be forgotten. Every opportunity must be used to emphasize the human side of you, the girlish side, the traits which make such an irresistible appeal to his chivalrous soul for protection and care. And in caps, the qualities which arouse an overpowering tenderness in his heart, which makes his arm ache to fold you in them and hold you there forever. The story of David, Agnes, and Dora. In David Copperfield by Charles Dickens is a wonderful illustration of the angelic and the human in woman. There is no character which exactly corresponds with Amelia or Déruchette, or Angela Human, as described in Chapter 3. But Angela Human seems to be divided into two parts. Agnes represents the angelic side of her, the side that inspires worship, while Dora represents the human side of her, the side that inspires tenderness and the desire to protect. Agnes lacks the cuddlesome girlishness of Dora, and Dora lacks the sympathetic understanding of Agnes. What is the result? David Copperfield, although he has known Agnes since childhood, although he has worshipped her from the time he first beheld her, and although he senses all along that she alone is equipped to give him true sympathy and comradeship, becomes madly infatuated, not with Agnes, but with Dora. Dora's childlike ways, her dear little whims and caprices, her girlish trust in him, her absolute helplessness and dependence upon others to provide for her, make an irresistible appeal to his gentlemanly and chivalrous heart. She had the most delightful little voice, the gayest little laugh, the pleasantest and most fascinating little ways that ever led a lost youth into hopeless slavery. She was rather diminutive altogether. She was too bewildering. To see her lay the flowers against her dimpled chin was to lose all presence of mind and power of language in feeble ecstasy. There are many women who are adept in using Dora's techniques, but their hearts aren't pure. They're selfish, and so they give all women a bad name who want to be at home. These women are lazy. Think of that old show, Married with Children, and the wife that just sat on the couch, Mrs. Bundy, I don't remember her name. But every time he came home from work, she was on the couch watching TV and eating bonbons. When they were in high school, she used a lot of Dora's techniques, apparently. Women who just use these girlish techniques, but don't have a heart really to put their husband and children and home first. They just become selfish and lazy. They don't want to lift a finger around the home. They don't want to build up their man. And many men, they had selfish mothers who were like this. And so they don't even realize what they're missing. The love and devotion of a woman. Their dad didn't get it, so they don't know what they're missing. When women are at home, they need to be not selfish, lying on the couch, watching soap operas, eating bonbons. No, they're putting their family solidarity first. Everything that will build up the family first. Their finances, their family haven, conforming her schedule to his, taking care of the children, taking care of the home. Those were the qualities of Agnes. Dora, in Charles Dickens' story, couldn't give that. She was basically half of the ideal woman, the human half, whereas Agnes is the angelic half, and an ideal woman has both halves. Married to Dora, David turns to Agnes, because beauty alone is never enough. Yet even while such feelings toward Dora are at their highest, he misses the comfort, the understanding, the appreciation, and the sacred influence of Agnes. He writes, "As if in love, joy, sorrow, hope, or disappointment, in all emotions, my heart turned naturally there and found its refuge and best friend." Even after he marries Dora, he is obliged to turn to Agnes for encouragement in difficulty, for understanding, sympathy, and triumph, for intellectual comradeship. He tells Agnes, "Dora is rather difficult to, I wouldn't for the world say to rely upon, because she's a soul of purity and truth, but rather difficult to, I hardly know how to express it. Whenever I have not had you, Agnes, to advise and approve in the beginning, I have seemed to go wild and to get into all sorts of difficulty. When I have come to you at last, as I have always done, I have come to peace and happiness." Now you'll want to watch the movie, won't you? What each girl lacked. If Agnes had had the girlishness, the adorably human and childlike manner of Dora, David would never have made the mistake of marrying another. His worship of Agnes would have grown into love, into the desire to protect and shelter. But Agnes could not inspire such a desire. She was too independent of the help of man, too well able to kill her own snakes. On the other hand, if Dora had the sympathetic understanding, the appreciation of his highest ideals that Agnes had, David's mad infatuation for Dora would have developed into everlasting adoration and love. Neither of the two, unfortunately for them, represented the whole of Angela Human. If you have not seen the picture or read the book, do so. Study carefully the characters and the actions of these two girls. Each of them is admirably and thoroughly pictured. Each of them represents, almost to perfection, one of the two sides of Angela Human, the kind of woman most attractive to men. You can learn from them and from actions of David Copperfield a great deal which you might find difficult to learn elsewhere. Each of them made mistakes. Each of them won and lost David, and each of them is well worth emulating in some respects. What we wish to emphasize here is that you must not make the mistake Agnes did of relying upon sympathetic understanding and worship to do everything. Combine with this the femininity of Dora. Continue to emphasize the contrast between your frail tenderness and the man's manly strength and courage, constantly endeavoring by this contrast to make him feel like the man and hero he hopes to be. The method of procedure for accomplishing this has been explained in former chapters, but after you have inspired in him a worship for you, you will find this method 1,000 times more effective. If this being, whom he looks upon as the finest and noblest of women, is frail and tender when contrasted to him, does not that make him the greatest and most capable of men? Can she not make him feel more of a man and a hero than any other woman could make him feel? His worship so idolizes her that every word and action of hers acquires great significance. And in caps, an accidental touch of the hand, a sigh, a glance of approval or trust, any of these is likely to affect him profoundly. Now, more than ever before, the girl must show her dependence upon his protection and care, her trust in his manly strength and ability to shield her. Now, more than ever before, she must be waited upon, or protected, or guided, or sheltered, or noticed, or appreciated, or humored. Only thus can she arouse the tenderness which makes the man want to cherish and shield and protect her for life. She must show absolutely and unequivocally that she needs his manly care and comfort, that she is far too tender and frail and fine to go through the hard world without the guidance and protection of a man. The more she appears to need that guidance, the more pleasure there is in offering it, and the more delightful the prospect of being a lifetime guardian and hero. This is difficult to do with today's capable women. Yet, too needy is also a turnoff. You must have your own interests and hobbies, your own friends to talk to, and yet he needs to be of utmost importance in your life once you're married. When it talked about an accidental touch of the hand, a glance of approval or trust, any of these is likely to affect him profoundly. Today, women don't seem to understand the subtlety of that, and instead they give too much, too soon, to any man who pays attention to them. When the man becomes jealous, presently the man begins to think that other men do not appreciate what a fragile, fine, and delicate creature you are. He fears that if he does not watch over you carefully, one of them is likely to hurt your tender feelings or shock your delicate sensibilities. He feels that other men who don't appreciate the true daintiness of your character ought not to be allowed to associate with you. When he sees you with certain men whom he considers unworthy of your innocent confidence and trust, he can hardly withhold his indignation. He becomes, to a certain extent, jealous. He begins to look upon himself as the only one who can properly appreciate you, the only one to whom should be entrusted the privilege of protecting and caring for you, and the only one, therefore, who ought to be permitted to share your intimacy. He feels that it is incumbent upon him to look after you, that you are his to watch and shield and provide for. You ought indeed to be his, and his exclusively. His attention has grown into interest. His interest has grown into worship, and his worship is now full-fledged desire. And of course, you only want this interest to grow into worship and desire if he truly is the man you really want to marry. Otherwise, you will end up crushing him, and that is not only wrong, it is sinful. We are to do all things unto the Lord. It ends with another poem, which is so bad I'm not even going to read it. Last week, for the National Day of Service for Daughters of the American Revolution, a group I belong to, we were cleaning headstones at Downey Cemetery in California. They have quite a few veterans' grave sites and headstones from World War I, World War II, and the Vietnam War. Many of the stones were covered by dirt and tree debris, And so a group of us got together to clear and clean as many headstones as we could. The very first headstone I uncovered from a mound of dirt and leaves just melted my heart. And it was obvious that the woman buried in this grave was a fascinating woman. The first thing I noticed was the lovebirds. I've never seen lovebirds on any other headstone. And as I uncovered her name underneath the years she lived, her husband had written, God's most perfect creation. And then under his name, the year of his birth, he wrote, Mary's adoring husband for 66 precious years. And with an epitaph like that, you know that his wife was a fascinating woman. This headstone epitaph is as good as the Taj Mahal being built for that emperor's dear, fascinating womanhood wife. We read under the subheading, How to Turn Worship into Love, she becomes for him the one woman in all the world, the purest, the best, the gentlest, and the loveliest in every other way. Mary Jane Duncan Utley definitely was that for Billy Ted Utley. Wouldn't you like your own epitaph to be as lovely and adoring and meaningful as this one? Let's all try to do better to become the storybook mothers and fascinating wives we dream of being. It is possible. And with that, we have ended Pamphlet 7. We'll begin Pamphlet 8 next time. Bye!